This red beauty right here is the Giant Trance Advanced 2 29er. I took her for a test ride and I'm going to tell you all about it. Let's get to it. Alright, so the Giant Trance Advanced 29er, I say that 5 times fast. When that bike was announced, I was really excited for it. I was like, yes, finally Giant gave us a long travel 29er. And then I clicked on the link and I saw it only had 115 mil of travel in the back and 130 up front. And I was like, no, this isn't the bike that I was wanting from them. But read all the reviews, they seemed really positive, saw some videos on it, finally got the chance to ride it myself, and man, was I wrong. It's an amazing handling bike. This bike will prove to you that geometry trumps pretty much anything else in terms of having fun on the bike. So let's look at the bike a little bit. So this is the Advanced 2 model. This is a size large. Something new, at least recently for Giant, is a front carbon end and then also a carbon rear end. Fork and suspension wise, you're looking at the Fox 34 Rhythm with the grip damper, excellent fork. Shock, the Float DPS Performance, a Giant branded handlebar and stem. Seat post, you're looking at the contact switch dropper. I feel like that was kind of the letdown of the build. Not a fan of that dropper post. Other notable things, it has SRAM NX Eagle, so you have that full 1x12 and 50 tooth up in the back. Brakes, you have SRAM Guide T with 180 mil rotors front and back, a good choice there. And wheels, this was another cool thing. You have the carbon TRX1 wheel system, so very lightweight wheel set. I can't honestly say I felt the added stiffness in the wheel set, but it did make for some really crisp acceleration coming out of corners and also when you're trying to punch it uphill. So enough of the bike spec, let's go out and see how it rode, and we'll bring it back here and wrap it all up. So I'll get the fit out of the way. I'm about 6 foot with shoes on, 32-inch inseam, average-ish length arms. This is a large, and this fits pretty well. It's got 780 mil width bars, 50 mil stem, and I would not, for a bike of this kind where you'd want it to be like a one bike does all, I would not want to go bigger. And since I probably wouldn't choose a bike like this to do outright park laps, I'd have no reason to go bigger for maybe added cockpit length or stability. So far, everything this bike has is almost like a climber's dream. That revised Maestro setup, you know, I've ridden the 27.5 Trance. They've done a really good job at keeping the rear end higher in its travel and also soaking everything up. I would say it's a tad on the firmer side. Let's say tad on the softer side if you were going to compare it to like maybe the Ripley LS. But lots of good mid-stroke support when you really need to put some power down to get up some features. It does really well. The spec and the geometry of the bike really shine through in terms of how it can be a capable climber. So it's got Eagle for one, so you've got that really good wide range for when it gets really steep. Yeah, I wouldn't say it has the steepest seat-tube angle. As it sits, I think it's about mid 74s with a 66 and a half-ish head tube angle. But the geometry is really good. I definitely feel like I'm more over the handlebars and in the middle of the bike climbing.
versus kind of off the back. Front end is not light nor it's heavy. I have kind of hovered it over the ground on some punchier pedals, but not too bad. So for climbing, if that's your jam, this bike I think ticks all the boxes in terms of build, geometry, and suspension design. Kind of went through some rocks right there, stayed very composed. So yeah, I give the thumbs up in the climbing category. If you haven't descended on a trail bike, if you're used to kind of the 6-inch enduro bikes, it's a lot of fun. It's just a more active live experience, and this is no exception. I do feel like maybe having the slightly shorter offset would help if you've kind of been nervous about having a little travel or too twitchy on these types of bikes, you know, because the angles are going to be slightly steeper. I think that helps remedy that a little bit. You do kind of pushed around a little bit, but for bike handling and things like that, it's really fun. The Fox Rhythm fork with the grip, really plush and supple as all of them have been that I've ridden, and the rear end isn't very lively, I would say. Oh. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Sorry.
It's all right. But I haven't feel it bottom out at all. And I do feel like it's a lot more active than the previous Maestro bikes that I've ridden with the non-metric setup. Man, this is a really good trail bike.
All right, so let's summarize the experience we had out there on the trail. So let's start with climbing. The Giant utilizes their Maestro suspension platform still, which is a dual link suspension platform. Climbing wise, I would say the suspension it didn't feel very firm, kind of like the Ripley LS does, which is another short travel 29er bike that I've ridden. But it's definitely not soft either. I'd say it rides just above the mid-stroke in terms of pedaling, because it does stay decently high in its travel. In terms of going over chatter and rocks, it definitely wants to absorb the hits and kind of stay on plane, whereas some bikes kind of take the hit and kind of buck you a little bit. This one tends to absorb and keeps you on track. So in terms of out of the saddle pedaling, it definitely bobs in a little bit if you're wanting to sprint up something. But again, it stays kind of right in that mid-stroke even when you do that, and you're putting a lot of force and weight down onto the bike. Overall though, with this particular build being the carbon frame and the carbon wheel set, it's very light and it feels like it on the trail. All right, descending with this bike. This bike descends very well for the amount of travel that it has. Suspension feel, I would probably put it at very smooth. It's not overly plush, but it's not overly stiff and bumpy as well. You definitely are absorbing the hits. You don't feel it being very active like some bikes are, kind of like some of the Yeti bikes that I've ridden, but it's definitely smooth. What's nice about their Maestro system is they have full sealed bearings pretty much on the top and the bottom eyelet, so it's a very stiction-less suspension system. But it doesn't feel overly active, but it does feel very smooth, and it does pretty much absorb and stay on plane until you run out of travel. When you run out of travel, that's when things start to get a little bit dicey, and it makes for a very spirited ride. But other than that, I would say the crowning achievement with this bike is its geometry when descending. Coupling that 66.5-ish head angle on a short travel bike really lets you push this bike and other bikes like it in ways that you couldn't do before. So on paper, this would almost look like a cross-country, maybe cross-trail bike, but this descends way better than all those bikes used to. So overall, I had a real blast riding this bike. It was the bike that proved me wrong. Again, geometry trumps pretty much everything else, in my opinion. That was a revelation for me on this bike. So I'm going to try and take this up against the Transition Smuggler. But until then, thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, please let me know. I know there's a lot of things that I probably wanted to say that I didn't. Sometimes you just have that video or viewer gap, kind of like reader's gap. But if you have any questions, let me know. I'd be happy to answer them for you. And until then, we'll see you guys next time.